Congratulations on coming to this You Imagine event. I'm very excited for all you guys to get your process started, whether this is your first time starting off on your idea or you've been working on it for a little bit. This is going to be a great experience for you. Maureen is the best teacher around. I'll talk a little bit about her. But she truly taught me pretty much everything I know about entrepreneurship and really helped guide me along my journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that journey here tonight as well. So first of all, just thanks a lot to Maureen for having me here. It's a big honor to come back to Ursinus and talk to students. It feels like, I was only here 4 years ago, and it feels like it was just yesterday. I was sitting in the same chairs that you guys are sitting in now. Technically, the IDC wasn't here then. I had the pleasure of living in Reimer for 3 years while they were building it, hearing all the construction noise, but never getting to actually use the space. So it's awesome to come back and get to use it. But I was sitting in very similar chairs as you guys are sitting in now. And pretty much as a college student, there's one question that's kind of always on your mind. And especially as you become a senior in college, this question really starts to creep up on you. And anybody in the audience, you guys have any idea what question I'm talking about?
What am I going to do in the future?
Right. So what am I going to do with the rest of my life, right? And that's a really big and hard question. And to me, actually, I think that question is pretty flawed. And let me tell you why. Basically what that question does is it divides your life into these two ridiculous buckets. College, which is fun and happy and exciting, but has a distinct time limit. And then the rest of your life, which is just this huge bucket of unknown and kind of sadness if you're a college student. And can be also very scary, right? So, one thing I wanted to talk about tonight is how crazy this idea is of rest of your life and just thinking about we have to know what we're going to do, because truly no one really knows what they're going to do with the rest of their life. Maureen and I still talk today about what she's going to do in the next step of her career. I'm still figuring out 4 years into my career, what am I going to do next? So it's this everlasting question that you might figure out, hey, what am I going to do tomorrow, next year? But figuring out the rest of your life is crazy. So let's just start off this presentation, this whole UC Imagine Fest, with just throwing that idea out the window. So that's that little animation there. So, this is a tip that I wish I had gotten as a college student, because the rest of your life is a very overwhelming thing, and it's also, potentially very useless, because, in a moment's notice, something can change, and what the rest of your life will mean can have a totally different perspective, right? So we see things happen in an instant that can change your life for the better or for the worse, and it's kind of just this useless idea. So good. So now that concept is gone. What should you be thinking about as a college student, as a senior in college? Let's talk about it. So I think it basically breaks down to where are you currently at in your process. So you might be in one of two places, you might be in another place, but I'm going to take a guess that you're in probably one of these two groups. So just show of hands, tell me if you have an idea right now, you've come here, you've brought an idea, but you don't necessarily know where to go with it. Who in the room is in that spot? Put them up high, let me see. Okay, most people probably. Okay, and then group number 2 would be I don't even really know what I want to do, and I don't really know how to get there. Okay, that's me too, by the way. Okay, great. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of these groups tonight, starting off with group number 1. So you're in group number 1. You have an idea. You've come here tonight because you want to figure out, how do I get this idea started? Now, to me, the most important thing that you can do is actually get started, right? What do I mean by that? I'll get into that in a second. But get started and also test out your idea. So you can see here I've laid out these kind of 4 steps. And I'm going to repeat this a lot throughout this presentation. But basically, these are kind of the steps that you need to take your idea from an idea, something on paper, or maybe even just in your head, into reality, into a business, into a website, whatever it is that you're looking to build. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one of these steps here. So when you talk to, maybe an expert in the startup field, I'm not one of those people, but what they might tell you is, hey, you need to start with a plan. You need to start with a business plan, right? And planning is great. And if you're going to start a business, you may need a business plan. But that's not exactly what I mean by get started. What I mean by get started is some of these things here, right? It is, what is your thing? What is your idea? Let's start doing it. Let's say you want to write a book. Go and write a chapter of that book. If you're trying to build an app or a website, let's start coding that website. Let's start a Squarespace and actually start designing that and figuring out what that's going to look like. One thing I'm sure Maureen will talk to you about at some point is going and talking to experts in the potential field that you're looking to get into. Surveying potential customers, which I know is a big part of the process that you guys will do now. If you're going to be selling something, go out and create that sales pitch and then get out there and start selling. You got a 3D printer next door, which is an awesome innovation, something that you guys can take advantage of. Go and 3D print a prototype of your idea, right? So these are the kinds of things I mean by get started. And the thing is about all this stuff is it's really hard. It's really hard to do these things. It's a big hump that you have to get over. But the thing is when you start these things, and more importantly, when you finish them, you will be very proud of what you have done. It'll be a big first step, and you can say, hey, I got a business. I got an idea. I got something that I'm working on. As opposed to, it's just an idea. I actually have this tangible thing now that I can hold in my hand or that I can show you in a website. And that will enable you also to get to, if we go back here, to step number 3, that test and validation step, which is very, very critical in the startup process. Okay, so moving into that test and validation step, basically what you need to figure out now that you've started your idea is this a good idea, right? And that is a very hard question, but it's not a hard question to answer really, as long as you have this tangible thing that you've started. So I'll talk a little bit about how I kind of went through this process. So when I was with Maureen in the UImagine Center, I was a senior here at our Sinus. I had been studying abroad over in Australia my junior year. I had come back, and one of the people I was abroad with was working at this business called Connexi. And it was basically a customer service software platform. And they had this idea about, hey, you guys are in the US. We're trying to move our business into the US. Why don't you try and kind of sell our app in the United States? So we were attempting to do that. And our getting started was essentially writing up, a sales pitch, coming up with sales materials that we could hand out, flyers and things like that. And then it was really going out and talking to business owners and starting to get feedback, right? So that was our first move. And what was really important was, can we get validation of that idea, of this idea, Connexi? Can we figure out, are people interested in it? When you're talking to people and having these conversations, are they excited? Can you see in their face, their eyes light up when you're starting to hit on some of their pain points? What can you learn? Are you potentially pitching your idea and getting feedback that you can kind of take back to your camp and start to analyze and break down and say, hey, what can we tweak here so that we can really address some of that feedback? Do you have people that are actually willing to try? If you have this tangible website, service, product, can you get people willing to sign up to try it? What might you change about your idea? So you have your initial idea. It may be really good, but more than likely you're probably going to have to tweak it a little bit. So what can going out there and talking to people actually teach you about that? What feedback can you get? And then, really, what's really important is where do I go next, right? What's my next move? I got started. I'm talking to people. I'm pitching a little bit. Where do I have to go now? So those are some of the things that you will get into when you start to enter into this validation step. So what's really important, and I kind of touched on it a little bit there, is once you get into this validation mode, you really have to start listening, right? And this can be very, very hard because you have your idea. It could be thought of as your baby, right? Like you've put all this time and energy into it, and maybe at this point you've gotten started. You're starting to get some conversations going, starting to test out your idea in the market. And it could be overwhelming, it could be sad if your idea isn't really panning out. But what's important is this one here, right? Like you don't want to become totally married to your idea. What you really want to devote yourself to is that feedback that you're getting from the market, is listening to the people that are giving you this feedback. And what that will essentially tell you to do is one of two things. Either, hey, you're on the right track. Double down on this. Let's keep going in this direction. Or more than likely, especially when you're first getting started, it's, I got to pivot this idea. I got to maybe change it up. Right? When Facebook first started out, they were only on college campuses. And then eventually at some point they realized, hey, we got something that's a little bit bigger here. We got to pivot this and expand it out to the greater audience. And then probably hundreds of thousands of times throughout Facebook's journey, they were going down some road where they were developing some feature, and then it didn't work out and they had to pivot it, right? And so that's a part of any business. But it's something that's easier said than done, right? Because like I said, you get married to your idea. It's yours. And it can be very hard to want to change it or go somewhere else. So, going back to my story, when we were doing Connexy, we thought it was a good idea. We really liked it. My partner was very much involved with their team. He had interned with them for 3 months, so we had this connection with these guys. And to come back and tell them, hey, your idea is actually not that good, was pretty challenging. But in these conversations we were having with small business owners, that's what we were kind of figuring out, was like, hey, small businesses really didn't need Connexy. It wasn't really serving any of their needs. And that was a problem, and it was very hard for us to realize that. And we kind of just pushed down this route of like, well, maybe we're just not hitting the right market for a long time. Luckily, we had Maureen who kept pushing us and saying, hey, you guys are having these conversations. No one really seems interested. Maybe it's time you got to pivot. You got to find something else. So finally, we had this eureka moment. And basically what that was, like I said, people didn't really need Connexy. But maybe they needed something else. And what we discovered was they did need something else. They needed digital marketing. So now we had something, digital marketing, pretty broad. But we had something to double down on. And that was a big step for us. Finding this initial direction was a huge milestone in our process. But the entrepreneurial process didn't necessarily stop there. It was almost kind of just beginning. So to fast forward a little bit, I kind of ended up pushing this venture forward pretty much by myself, and eventually founded this company called FIO Media. And I basically did digital marketing for small businesses for about 4 years. And it was awesome, super exciting. And throughout that process, I was constantly coming back to this. It was, hey, all right, we got digital marketing now. Now what products and services can I offer? One of my first ideas was, hey, I'm going to videotape business owners in their natural environment and then make Instagram and Facebook and Twitter videos and YouTube videos, chop those all up and have a bunch of social content for these businesses. And maybe that was a good idea, but I tried it and tested it out and see, did it work? When I was pitching this idea to clients, did their eyes light up? Were they excited about it? And then that continued, like onward and onward and onward, having another idea, testing it out, validating it, listening to the customer and repeating. Even in my sales pitches, and I did a lot of them, and a lot of them didn't go very well. You can see in your customer's eyes, are you hitting on their pain points, right? Like when you're describing, hey, yeah, you need to grow your business, but you don't know how. Are they nodding their head? Are they getting into it? Or are they like, I don't really know, what you're talking about, right? So just constantly throughout my process, throughout my business journey, I was going back to this process here. Okay, so that is, maybe gives a little bit of clarity to some of those group 1 people who are in that, hey, I have this idea, where do I go next, right? So where are my group 2 people at? That was, if we come back to this slide, I don't really know what I want to do. You guys still here? Okay, cool. So I didn't forget about you. So this can be a very challenging place as well, right? The world seems full of opportunities until we have to pick one. It becomes very challenging. I've been here myself several times in my short 4-year career. And, basically one of the biggest times was 4 years into doing FIO Media, and I didn't like it. So digital marketing was a need, potentially, of small businesses, but I didn't like digital marketing. I didn't enjoy the work. I wasn't enjoying my day-to-day. So what do? This is kind of a crossroads in my life. Crossroads that I spent many hours talking to Maureen about, so she knows all about it. And basically, what I came up with, and looking back on this, what I've come up with is you just have to try something. You have to pick something. So some of the examples of what I mean by that. Maybe you go and learn a new skill. Nowadays you have YouTube. You have so many different online courses that you could take, which are awesome. Maybe you do that. Maybe you just kind of go out on LinkedIn or wherever, one of these job boards, and you just take a job. It doesn't have to be a job that you're super interested in. It doesn't have to be a job that is super lucrative, but maybe it's a job where you can learn something. Maybe there's somebody at that job that can be a great mentor to you, that can really teach you something that may even inspire you to go down a different track. Maybe you can just start a blog. One thing I think is super interesting nowadays is, let's say I want to get into data analytics, right? I know nothing about it. I start taking a course online, and while I'm taking that course, I'm starting a blog or a vlog or a social media, a Twitter page, and documenting about my experience learning data analytics. And now all of a sudden, not only am I learning something, but I also have this demonstration of my process that I'm going through, that when I'm looking for a job in this new field, I can kind of use to market myself with. So interesting new opportunity that only available to us in the last 10 years or so. Maybe you start a business, right? That's why we're all here. We want to start a business. Easier said than done. And if in that case, right, you kind of want to refer back to that group 1, that group 1 process that we talked about. Maybe it's you just join a club, right? So there's a ton of meetups. When I was initially getting into data analytics, I was going to some of these analytics meetups. And were they amazing? Did they tell me exactly what I wanted to do next? No, but it showed me people who were in the field, enabled me to learn a little bit about what they were doing, what opportunities were out there. And like I said, maybe you bump into somebody that inspires you and helps you go down the road that you're looking for. Starting an online course, kind of talks about that one a little bit. Networking with alumni, so someone like me, I'm sure Maureen can hook you up with a ton of different alumni out there from Ursinus. There's a lot of really, really smart people that went to Ursinus that have awesome jobs. Talking to them, understanding what their careers have been like, what their journey has been like. When have they been in a similar place to where you are now at a crossroads where they didn't really know what to do? And how did they navigate that? Somebody out there might have some really good experience, really good stories to tell. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, I'm going to get a part-time job on the weekends, right? Liz and I have a friend who is looking to maybe get into the wedding industry. She already has a full-time job, but on the weekends, she got a job as an assistant wedding planner. And she definitely learned a lot. Does she want to do it as a career? We're not sure. She's not sure. But hey, she learned something. She tried something out. She took that step. And it was hard. She worked a lot of hours. She worked every weekend pretty much all summer long. But she learned something. She took that next step in her career. And now she has a foundation to make that next move from. So the most important thing here, I think, when you're at this crossroads is you got to try something. And then you got to have a little bit of patience, right? Taking that job, trying that to learn that new skill, it might not be the thing. And by the way, you may not find the thing for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. But you got to keep trying. You got to keep going. Because sooner or later, you're going to come across someone, you're going to come across something that will stick. And then that's your opportunity to double down on it. So I kind of touched on this already, but trying something equals learning, right? Even if you take a new job, try and learn a new skill, and you hate it, and you learn nothing, and you meet nobody, which is probably pretty unlikely, but let's say it happens. The worst case scenario is at least you didn't like that thing, and now you can go and try something else. So no matter what, if you're trying, you will learn something. And I think this is a pretty good quote here. Knowing what you don't want to do can almost be as powerful as knowing what you do want to do. And in my case, it was, right? I thought that I could get into digital marketing and running a business. I realized that's not what I wanted to do. But when I was looking for jobs after that, I knew to stay away from digital marketing. Didn't want anything to do with it. So again, it was pretty powerful for me. And now having had a career for 4 years post kind of having that business, or a couple of years post having that business, I know now the things that I liked about my job. I know the things that I didn't like about my job. And I have an even narrower focus as to where I want to go next. And that will just come with time, experience, trying different things. So really, what it all comes down to is coming back to this process. This process is not necessarily just for an entrepreneur or someone that wants to start a business. This process can be something that you come back to at many different stages of your life. If you are at a crossroads, if you are starting something new. Talking a little bit about this, but once I eventually moved on from FIO Media, I ended up taking a job as a data analyst at a crypto startup. Totally new. I wasn't even really into crypto at the time, but like I said, I had to try something. And I was kind of blown away by how useful this process was at that job. So constantly, I'm an analytics. So we're trying to take a bunch of data, take a bunch of information, and figure out what we can learn from it. And that is exactly this process. Essentially, we have ideas. Hey, should we build this new feature for our app? Should we try and market to this new audience? And the only way to figure out if those ideas were good were to get started, build something that we could test, and then learn and see, try them out. Did this work? Did we get customers from this new audience with this marketing strategy? Did this new product that we launched get good feedback? Did it get customers to spend more money in our app? And then you figure out yes, no, answers to those questions, and then it just rinse and repeat, right? Okay, now we know this strategy works. Let's double down on it. Let's try putting more money toward it. Let's try, going a little bit further in that strategy. And it's, again, just repeating that process. And this process even goes beyond just business, work. I think we had someone on the golf team in here, right? So there he is. I love playing golf, and I'm a very competitive person. I was a college athlete, so I'm always trying to get better at golf. And I bring this process into my golf game, right? So I'm online. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to get better? So I get some ideas from YouTube, from wherever, and then I try them out. I see, does this drill help me score better? Does this breathing method help me score better? Does this, mentality that I approach my game with help me score better? And then I get feedback. What was my score on this day when I tried this new thing? Was it better? Was it worse? How did I feel when I was doing this new thing? And then I learn, okay, yeah, it worked, it didn't. And then again, it's just new drill, doubling down on the one that did work, and repeating that process. So again, I'm repeating myself a little bit, sound like a broken record, but I can't tell you how critical this process has been for my growth, for my development in my career, and basically for figuring out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, right? So figuring this stuff out, what are you going to do with the rest of your life, is super hard. And throughout your life, throughout your careers, your personal lives, you will have many crossroads and you will face many challenges. And I can't stand up here and tell you today exactly how you will solve all those challenges, because there will be many unknowns and they will be very hard challenges to solve. But what I can equip you with today, what I try to equip you with today, is a process, a mentality that you can come back to when you are at those crossroads, when you do face those challenges, and say, hey, I've got this process. I can work with this. I know how to navigate this challenge. I come back to this. And if you can master this, or maybe it's some other process, those types of tools are the things that will help you get through these challenging times. So again, hope that was helpful for you guys. I am a data analytics person, so I'm happy to answer analytics questions. I'm happy to answer questions about this process. I'm happy to answer questions about your individual ideas, but I hope you guys got a lot out of that little presentation. So thank you very much.
Check out some of the other content on our YouTube channel by clicking the videos on your screen now. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about what our center has to offer.